Hi, thank you for listening to this message from Jesus Center in Torrance, California. We would love to connect with you. Find us on social media, log on to jesuscenter.com, or even download our app. Please come and join us in person. We can't wait to see you.
The power of care. So one of the most powerful things we can do is to care for others. One of the most valuable things we can give is care for others. And I think one of the greatest blessings we have in this life is to have people who really care about us. The early Christians, they understood God as a caring God. So Peter wrote, "Cast all your worries upon God, for He cares for you." So because we believe God is a caring God, for us to become more like God is for us to become more caring people. And it's a given that nobody in this room, not a single person, can care for everybody in this room. But we can work together and contribute to creating a caring community. I will get into this a little bit more, but it's still part of my introduction. Here is a picture of false gold. Now, not everything that looks like gold is really gold. As the saying goes, not everything that glitters is gold. And not everything that looks like care is care. Not everything that has the appearance of care is truly godlike care. So anyway, just like there's fool's gold, there's fool's care or counterfeit care. And so through this message, we're going to seek to point out the differences and hopefully continue to progress in the art of true care and to cultivate that heart of true care, not counterfeit care. But our scripture comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6 and 7. It'll be up on the screen. This is Paul the Apostle writing. He says, "I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it to grow. So neither is the one who plants nor the one who waters anything, but only God who makes all things to grow." So there's a few things going on in that scripture here, but we see that as we care for people, and planting and watering, their pictures, their expressions of care, as we care for people, God works and people grow. So as we care, God works and people grow. So let's not underestimate the power of caring for others, because it's something that God will work in, God will work through to bring greater wholeness and strength to people. So as we care, people grow. They grow out of bondages, limitations, perhaps addictions, and they grow into their purposes, their callings, and their destinies in God. Here's a picture of a backyard garden. And for this garden to be able to grow, it's a vegetable garden. First of all, you need seed and you need water. There are other things that you need. There are other factors that are very important, other variables that are essential. But you need seed and you need water. Now, seed alone won't do, because the seed will not be able to germinate or grow apart from water. And you can't just have water. You need to have water and seed and water. Yet seed and water, they're just two of the things that you need. It's not the end. It's just the beginning. You need seed, you need water, and there's other things that are required for this to happen. So how do we care for people? To care for people, we sow seed into them, and then we also water them. So the seed has to do with words. So Jesus shared about how the seed is the word of the kingdom. He gave a parable called the parable of the sower, where the seed is the word. And so if we want to really care for people, we want to sow seed into them. We want to speak to them words of life. We want to plant in them thoughts that can lead them into enjoying God's kingdom. We want to give them ideas. We want to give them revelation that can potentially bring forth spiritual growth in their lives. And that's planting. That's one of the ways we care. But also, there's seed, and then there is watering. So water has to do with time, attention, and prayers. Time, attention, and prayers. So we want to take time to water. We don't want to just sow words into people. We also want to show our care through beyond words, through our actions. And that's when we invest time, thought, relationship. You share a meal. You invite people over to your house. You pray for them. You pray with them. And those are other ways that we show our care for people. But as we sow seed and as we water, people can grow. people can grow. I didn't say they will grow. People can grow. Not that they will grow, but people can grow. It's no guarantee that they will grow, but we do our part and people can grow. So our job is to care for others, and then that's where our role ends. There's some things that we can do, and then there's things that are out of our control. We do our part and then leave the rest up to God. So Paul says, I plant, Apollos waters, but then God does his part. So at the end of our responsibilities, we just plant and we just water, and then we leave the rest up to God. Up on the screen will be a picture of a farmer, or two farmers. Mom farmer, dad farmer, wife farmer, husband farmer. But the farmer does their part. The farmers do their part. And yet there's so many things that are out of their control. For example, the weather is not under their control. So the farmers, they can be very faithful to do their part, and they are faithful to their part. And as they sleep, that's why they're happy, because they had good sleep. I hope some of you had some good sleep. But as they sleep, then the higher forces, the invisible forces, the higher powers, if you will, then have to do their part. And that's an incredible reminder that as we do our part, which is to care, we don't have to lose sleep as we care for others, because all we can do is do our part and then go to sleep. We do our part and then we go to sleep, and then the higher power, or God, he goes to work and he has to do his part. And in our rest, God works. Just like as these farmers are sleeping, things are happening in their farm. Their farm is bearing fruit. And so we need to sleep and we need a rest, and then that's when God works. And, the scriptures tell us that God does not slumber or sleep. So because God is not sleeping, there's no reason that two of us need to stay up. So we can go to sleep, and then God does his part. When it comes to gardening, though, you can have the healthiest seed, you can water faithfully without missing a day, and yet the plant may never grow. Because, again, there are other variables, there are other contributing factors. For instance, what if there's unhealthy soil? Or what if there's not enough sunlight? In my backyard, I'm having a really hard time in this little area, maybe as big as this part of the stage, but that part of the stage, just grass doesn't grow. And I heard that it's because I had this a gardener friend come, and he said it's because you're not getting enough sunlight there. So there are other variables. You can put the seed, you can water, but there are other things that are out of our control. So when it comes to caring for people, we must understand these four things. Number one, it's ultimately not our job to change and transform people. Number two, we can have been faithful in our care and not see the desirable results. Number three, let's accept that there are other variables or factors that are out of our control. Soil condition, climate, weather. Number four, let's not take on this false burden that we have to make things grow, because that is a recipe for burnout. I wonder if there was ever a time where you invested a lot of care into a person. You really cared for them. You cared for them with your words. You cared for them with your actions. You gave a lot of time for them. It just required a lot of emotional energy as you cared for somebody. But what happens when you see that they're not responding to your care? It may be easy to be discouraged, but we don't have to be discouraged because, number one, some plants take longer to grow than other plants. So maybe we're not seeing anything, but there's this unseen root system that's developing as we care. The scriptures tell us that there's seed, time, and then harvest. It's not just seed and harvest. There's something called time that comes between the sowing and the harvesting. So time is essential to spiritual growth and personal transformation. It's not just going to be like you sowed care and automatically you harvest a transformed life. No, it's seed, then time. I don't know how much time, but time. Sometimes it's going a lot longer, a lot slower than we want. And yet there's seed, then there's time, and then there's harvest. We have to understand that spiritual growth is not like a microwave. It's more like a crock pot. Now, if somebody's not responding to our care, we have to then refrain from trying to force change or transformation upon someone. Like, for example, what if, let's go back to the farmer, what if he's saying, well, man, my tree's not growing, so then he starts pulling, grow, and he starts pulling on the tree. I remember when I was a kid, I would wake up in the morning and my mom would be like pulling on my legs, so that she can like stretch me out. I don't know if it worked. Maybe I was supposed to be 5'4", and now I'm like, I'm taller than that. I don't know. Maybe it did work, but just imagine like a farmer says, "Why aren't you growing? I'm getting so frustrated. You're taking too long. I need fruit. Grow, dang!" And pulls the tree out of the soil. That's just counterproductive. So our job is to care. It's not to control. People are delicate. So what do you do when somebody is not responding to our care? Well, let's resist the temptation to get discouraged and bitter and worried because we're not seeing results. Because if we are allowing ourselves to get discouraged, bitter, and worried because we're not seeing desirable results, we're only going to burn out. And people who are burning out, they no longer have energy to care for others. And so even though you do it externally, you're doing it grudgingly, and the people feel like a burden. They are a burden. And no human being likes to feel like a burden. I think another way we can be an abusive gardener is you get really angry and impatient with the plant that you just start cursing it. Like, "You idiot! Now why don't you grow?" And what that's doing is spraying pesticide upon the plant. And that's not going to help the plant to grow. We need to, again, sow seed and water, not spray pesticide. But sometimes in our anger, in our frustration, in our impatience, we just start saying very hurtful things. We start speaking words of death instead of sowing words of life. And then it is very counterproductive as well. Now, Jesus, he modeled care for his disciples. He saw them as sheep, and he was a good shepherd. And Jesus wanted his disciples to then care for others. So that's why in a conference with Peter, he asked Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus said, Take care of my sheep." Now, did Jesus say, "Control my sheep"? Did Jesus say, "Manipulate my sheep"? No. Did Jesus say, "Be angry and curse my sheep"? And Jesus also didn't say, "Spoil my sheep," and we'll get into that in a little bit. But Jesus said, take care of my sheep. As you saw the picture of the false gold, the fool's gold, I want to now differentiate true care from false care. Because when we have true care, it's very contrary, it's very opposite in nature from false care. Because when you have true care, you want to see the other person grow, flourish, and thrive, and that's it. Period. Not comma, period. You want them to grow, flourish, and thrive, and that's it. Remember, Paul, he says, "I planted the seed, then Apollos watered, then God caused the growth." And so when you truly care about somebody, you just want to see them grow in God, grow by God, grow for God. You just want them to grow emotionally. You want them to grow spiritually. You want them to grow in character. You want to see them grow financially. You want to see them grow out of addictions, bondages, sins, limitations, issues. And you want them to grow into who they're supposed to be in God. And then that's it. The motive is supposed to be very simple. You just want to see people grow. But false care is when we act like we care about their soul, but we only care about their services. So we act like we care about them, but at the end of the day, we just care about ourselves. And that's selfish, it's deceptive, it's manipulative, it's false care. So false care is when we use people solely as a means to our end. So let me just give you a few examples of how this can play out. So we want to groom somebody, but we want to groom them for a position in our organization. And that's the only reason why we care about them. Number two, here's another way it plays out. We want to use them to further our agenda. So we have an agenda and we're using them to help us get what we want. Number three, we want to use them to feed our ego and to make us look good or to feel good. And usually, just like how, when you have a fool's gold ring, it leaves your finger green. If somebody is someone who dispenses false care, usually their true motives will eventually surface. And then those who have been on the receiving end of the false care, they feel very hurt and they feel devalued. So we need to be discerning because manipulative people can act like caring people. But again, they care primarily about themselves or mostly about themselves. They only act like they care about you. They act like they care about your soul, but they care about themselves. And they just see you as a tool, as a means to an end. Now, caring people, though, and I know that this room is full of caring people, but caring people are often victims of manipulative people. How many of you know what I am talking about? Manipulative people see caring people as easy prey. They're drawn to those who have caring hearts, and they're going to seek to take advantage of their heart. Now, manipulative people, they use deceptive means, and they use deceptive means in order to benefit self, and they control others through emotions. So now, not everyone who acts like they care about us really care about us, and we know that. And I'm not saying that we need to just be cynical people, and whenever somebody does something nice, oh, you don't really care about me, do you? I'm not saying that we live as really cynical people, but Jesus said, be wise as a serpent. Jesus says, don't be deceived by false prophets, and false prophets are those who operate out of false care. So, some of the ways that you can tell if somebody really cares about you is, number one, you don't sense that there's an agenda or an ulterior motive. And they give you the freedom to say no. And they still like you, even when you don't comply to their wants. Now, watch out for manipulative people because they're always trying to play upon the strings of our emotions. So they make you feel sorry for them. They make you feel angry on their behalf. Watch out for people who make you feel angry on their behalf. And they make you intimidated to say no. Now, let me give you an example of manipulation. So let's see. Danny and G, I was praying earlier, and I had a vision, and I saw that you were at Einstein Bagel. And you were at Einstein Bagel right there on Hawthorne and Lomita. And this is what I hear the Lord saying. I hear the Lord saying, why was it not in thy heart to get a sesame bagel for my beloved son and my favorite servant Daniel? And the Lord is saying, because his wife has not been feeding him at home. And she has been neglecting her responsibilities, and therefore he is starving. Why was it not in your heart to care for my son and my servant Daniel? And so next time you are at Einstein Bagel, remember to get him one as well. Thus says the Lord. Amen. Now I have a question for Danny and G. Were you at Einstein Bagel? Oh, they were. How did I know that? See, manipulative people have gifts as well. Yeah, or Facebook, right? No, it's because I saw them. I was at Coffee Bean, and I just drove by them. But just because they're gifted doesn't mean that they're not manipulative. They can use gifts to be manipulative. But anyway, we're called to be empathetic towards others. We're not called to be engulfed by others. So when manipulation enters a relationship, now it's feeling very one-sided. The scriptures teach us that we're supposed to be building each other up. But when you start feeling like somebody is sucking you dry, chances are that there's manipulation at work. When somebody's manipulative, they're now reducing a human being to a tool. Now, we're supposed to use things and care for people, not care for things and use people, but you just feel used. So I have a question for you, for all of us caring people in this room. How can we stay clear of being manipulated? How can we prevent manipulation from having the best of us? How do we prevent people from taking advantage of us through their trickery, their weaponry of manipulation? Well, I think this is a good answer. Maybe it's not the only answer, but here's a good answer. As a caring person, give to people what they need, not all their wants. Give them what they need. Don't comply to all their wants. Because even parents, we can be manipulated by our kids. And so you have a 6-year-old, and he's trying to convince you to give him 6 scoops of ice cream for dinner every night. And the kid's making you feel sorry for it. Oh, yeah, but Mom, I was bullied at school. Or I don't know, like just coming up with reasons. But Mom, and always coming up with reasons to make you feel sorry for them. And anyway, but you can't give them 6 scoops of ice cream for dinner. You have to give them a well-balanced meal. That's what they need. So we're not supposed to just give everybody what they want. And some of us in this room, we just give to everybody what they want. We comply to all their wants because we just want people to like us. We're people pleasers. We want them to be happy with us. But if that's what we want, we just want people to like us and be happy with us, then we may be self-centered ourselves, and we may not be caring for people as much as we care about ourselves. So again, that's borderlining counterfeit care. So as a caring person, we want to sow seeds and give encouraging words. I think in life there's so much to discourage us that we need all the encouragement that we can get. I remember one of the pastors I served under, he was over at the Dream Center in LA. His name was Matthew Barnett, and he started his ministry really young. I think he was 20 years old when he took on the church. And he was once telling about a story of him and his dad is a well-known minister, Tommy Barnett. But they were in the elevator together, and then another dad and son came into the elevator. And then Tommy Barnett looked over to the other dad and said, "I'm sure you're as proud of your son as I'm proud of mine. I'm sure you have so many good things to say about your son as I have to say about mine." And then the other father responds to Tommy Barnett and says, "I don't want his head to get any bigger, so I'm not going to tell you what I think about him." And then they got off the elevator, and it was just Tommy and Matthew Barnett. And so the father looks at the son and says, "Matthew, what that dad did was a very foolish thing. I gave him an opportunity to encourage his son." And Tommy told his son Matthew, "Well, in life there are so many things and so many people who will seek to discourage you that we need all the encouragement we can get." And so I think that's a valid way to care for somebody, by using our words to speak life into them. And so we want to be good at sowing seeds that can lead them into kingdom living. But we also want to be good at watering people, and we water them through our actions. But I have a picture for you on the screen. It is possible to drown someone. Yes, we want to be good at sowing seed, and we want to be consistent and faithful in watering others with our actions, but it's possible to drown someone, and then it's counterproductive. All this corn here is going to die because it's death by drowning, according to that picture from Purdue University. Now, maybe some of these illustrations are really speaking to some of the Midwest people. Yeah, corn farm. But I remember one time, this is a little off topic, but I remember one time my wife and I, we were doing an anniversary trip in a little town called Ojai, and we heard that it was a pretty cool place. And so we didn't know much about it, but we just booked a hotel and went. And then we called the tourist office, the Office of Tourism, and we said, "Hey, so we just got here. What's there to do here?" And he said, "You can volunteer at a farm." And I was thinking to myself, why would I want to do that? Volunteer at a farm for my anniversary? Okay, but I know maybe for some people it's like, yeah, farm, they get excited. But anyway, I think for city people and the suburb people are like, farm? But it is possible to kill things by drowning them. And that's speaking of enabling people or spoiling people by just giving them what they want versus what they really need. I just have one picture and then we'll close. Look at this beautiful garden. On my vacation, we went to British Columbia, and this is the Butchart Gardens in Victoria, British Columbia. And look how beautiful that is. So many things had to work together to create that. You couldn't get that in the Mojave Desert or the Sahara Desert. You couldn't get this in Antarctica. There had to be sowing of seed, purposeful sowing. Perhaps they had to sow again and again and again. There had to be watering. The climate, the weather had to be right. There had to be the right amount of sunlight, not too much, not too little. And even water, I mean, you could have flooded this and then it wouldn't have been this. It just had to be the perfect amount of everything. And that's what I hope our church would look like. This is a picture of revival. And that, my friends, we can't make happen. No human being can just purpose to do that and to force that to happen. But we can do our part. And we simply do our part. We want to see the South Bay look like this garden. And forget the South Bay if our church can't even look like this. But maybe starting with the church, I wish it can look as beautiful as that. And again, there's so many things out of our control. The condition of the soil is not always in our control. How much it rains. Again, the sunlight, the forces that are out there that are beyond us. But what can we do? We can sow seed and we can water. In other words, we can be a caring people. We can be a caring community. I just have a few questions for you to think about as we wrap this message up, and I'll invite the worship team to come up. But is there anyone in your life that needs extra care in this season? I talked about that little patch in my backyard. That's just, the grass is dying. It needs extra care, extra love in this season. I'm trying to water it more, and I think it's working, but still I need more sunlight. But I remember, even at my parents' house, my dad used to always just give extra care to the areas that the grass was dying. And maybe there's someone in your life, someone that maybe God's putting on your heart that needs extra care in this season. And perhaps you need to invest more into them. You need to sow fresh seed and give them words of life. And then also care for them in ways that are beyond words. Here's another question. How well do you do in caring for people? And can we be more skilled in our encouragement? Can we be more skilled with our words? Can we be more wise in our watering? Here's another question. In what ways are we engaging in false care, where we care about ourselves more than we care about others? Number 4, are you carrying a false burden and you're relying on yourself to transform people when, again, there are variables, factors that are beyond us? We just can do our part and that's it. Last question. Is there anybody that you feel is manipulating you? And you need to stop giving them everything they want. Let's stand.
Thank you for listening to this message from Jesus Center in Torrance, California. We would love to connect with you. Find us on social media, log on to JesusCenter.com, or even download our app. Please come and join us in person. We can't wait to see you.